My name is Wesley, 34 years old, and I never thought my wedding day would become a battleground. Growing up as the forgotten son next to Justin, my golden child brother, taught me about invisible pain. When Amber and I decided to get married, I knew inviting Justin would turn our special day into another showcase for him. My parents issued ultimatums when they heard threatening to cut me off completely. But what happened when they crashed our ceremony? That changed everything. Before I share how my wedding day turned into a battlefield and then the most beautiful moment of my life, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from and hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to stand up to toxic family members. I grew up in a modest 3-bedroom house in suburban Chicago. Just me, my parents, and Justin, my brother, who is 2 years younger than me. From the outside, we probably looked like the perfect American family. Dad worked as an accountant at a respectable firm. Mom taught 3rd grade at the local elementary school, and us boys were always dressed nicely and taught proper manners. But inside our home, a different reality existed. Justin showed his special talents early. By age 5, he could already read at a 3rd grade level and showed remarkable coordination in sports. I, on the other hand, struggled with undiagnosed dyslexia until 4th grade. School was a daily battle, and while my parents never said it outright, their expressions when reviewing my report cards spoke volumes. Wesley tries hard, my teachers would write that damning phrase that suggests effort without results. Meanwhile, Justin brought home perfect scores and glowing reviews. When I was 12 and Justin was 10, he made the regional soccer team. My parents rearranged their entire work schedules to attend every practice, every game. That same year, I had the lead in the school play after weeks of rehearsals. On opening night, my parents arrived late and left early because Justin had a soccer tournament the next morning. "We are so sorry, Wesley, but you understand how important this is for Justin's future," Mom explained as they slipped out during intermission. I nodded and smiled, but inside, something cracked. My 16th birthday fell on the same day as Justin's regional soccer championship. Instead of the driver's license celebration I had anticipated for months, my birthday became a footnote in the day's events. We had cake in the car on the way to his game. My parents had forgotten to get candles. The cake itself said, "Congratulations, champion," because they had picked it up from the bakery, assuming Justin would win. He did. By the time I reached high school, the pattern was firmly established. Justin was the star of our family, and I was the supporting character. He became captain of both the soccer and debate teams. Colleges started sending recruitment letters when he was just a sophomore. My parents built a special shelf in the living room just for his trophies. I found my own quiet interests. Photography became my escape, something I could do alone that required no audience or validation. I joined the yearbook committee and found satisfaction in capturing moments that others missed. My photos won a regional contest during senior year. The certificate arrived in the mail while my parents were out of town at Justin's state championship. It sat unopened on the counter for 2 weeks. College applications arrived, and the contrast continued. Justin received a full scholarship to Northwestern University. I applied to state schools knowing my grades would never match his and understanding without being told that family finances would prioritize his education. I worked 30 hours a week at a local restaurant throughout high school to save money for college. Justin is just naturally gifted, my mother would tell her friends at church loud enough for me to hear. Wesley has to work so much harder for everything, bless his heart. I moved into my dorm at Illinois State with no family help. My parents were helping Justin settle into his premium dorm room that same weekend. I unpacked alone, arranged my small space, and felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time, I could exist without the constant comparison. College became my fresh start. Without the shadow of Justin's perfection, I discovered I was actually quite good at several things. My professors appreciated my unique perspective in communications classes. My photography improved dramatically. I made real friends who knew nothing about my golden child brother. I worked multiple jobs to pay my tuition and expenses. Mornings at the campus coffee shop, evenings, waiting tables and weekends, photographing local events. Every dollar I earned felt like another brick in the wall between my past and my future. During holiday breaks, I returned home to the usual family dynamic. Justin dominated conversations with tales of his academic prowess, campus leadership positions, and prestigious internship offers. My parents beamed with pride as he spoke. "And what about you, Wesley?" Still taking pictures, my father would eventually ask, his tone suggesting a hobby rather than a passion or skill. I learned to bring home carefully edited stories of my college life, emphasizing the practical aspects of my education rather than my growing artistic portfolio. They nodded with mild approval when I mentioned the business classes I took alongside my communications major. When I graduated with honors, my parents attended the ceremony, but left immediately after to attend Justin's junior year award banquet at Northwestern. My diploma joined my meager collection of achievements in a box under my childhood bed. I took a job at a marketing firm in Chicago, partly because it was a good opportunity, but mostly because it was far enough from my parents to limit visits, while close enough to avoid accusations of abandonment. For 3 years, I built my resume, learned valuable skills, and squirreled away savings for an eventual escape. Family gatherings remained exercises in patience. Thanksgiving centered around Justin's accomplishments. Christmas conversations inevitably turned to his bright future. When he graduated and immediately landed a position at a prestigious consulting firm, my parents threw him a party that rivaled most weddings in scale and expense. "This is just the beginning for Justin," my father announced in his toast. "He is going to make us all proud." I stood in the corner, taking photos. As requested, feeling like a professional photographer hired for the event rather than family. That night, I applied for a job in Boston. 3 weeks later, I accepted the offer and prepared to move across the country. My parents seemed surprised when I told them, as if they had forgotten I might have ambitions of my own. "But what about family holidays?" my mother asked, concern finally showing in her expression. "I will visit when I can." I promised, knowing that distance would be my salvation. The day I left for Boston, Justin was too busy with an important meeting to say goodbye. My parents helped me load my modest belongings into my car, their assistance perfunctory rather than emotional. "Make sure you call when you arrive," my mother said, hugging me briefly. "And keep us updated on your job situation," my father added, shaking my hand formally. As I drove away from Chicago, the rearview mirror showed them already turning back toward the house their duty discharged. I felt a weight lifting with each mile marker. At 25 years old, I was finally creating a life that was truly mine. Boston welcomed me with its historic charm and forward-thinking culture. My position as a junior designer at a digital marketing agency offered creative challenges and a fresh community of colleagues who knew nothing about Justin or my family history. For the first time, I was judged solely on my own merits, and I thrived in that environment. 6 months into my new life, my colleague Thomas invited me to his housewarming party. The small apartment in Cambridge was packed with people from various social circles. I nursed a beer in the corner, still somewhat uncomfortable in large gatherings, when a woman with auburn hair and the most genuine smile I had ever seen approached. "You look about as comfortable as I feel at these things," she said, extending her hand. "I am Amber. I know Thomas from our volunteer work at the community center." Her handshake was firm, her eyes direct and kind. Something about her immediately put me at ease. "Wesley," I replied. "Thomas and I work together at Horizon Digital." We found ourselves retreating to the relative quiet of the small balcony, where our conversation flowed with surprising ease. Amber worked as an elementary school counselor, helping children navigate emotional challenges and family difficulties. The irony was not lost on me. "What brought you to Boston?" she asked, genuinely interested in my answer. I gave her the simplified version, mentioning the job opportunity, but omitting the family dynamics that had propelled my move. She listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions about my design work and photography hobby. When Thomas announced he was ordering late-night pizza, Amber and I realized we had been talking for nearly 3 hours. We exchanged numbers before parting ways, and I found myself checking my phone repeatedly the next day. I texted her first, suggesting coffee at a local cafe I had discovered near the Boston Public Garden. She agreed, and that Saturday afternoon stretched into evening as we talked until the cafe staff began stacking chairs around us. "I guess that is our cue," Amber laughed, gathering her scarf and coat. "Would you like to continue this over dinner?" I asked, surprising myself with my boldness. Our first official date led to a second, then a third. Amber was refreshingly straightforward, warm, without being overbearing and attentive in a way I had rarely experienced. She remembered details about my work projects, asked follow-up questions about my photography, and seemed genuinely interested in my thoughts and opinions. 3 months into our relationship, we planned a weekend trip to Cape Cod during the off-season. Walking along the deserted beach wrapped in warm layers against the autumn chill, I found myself telling Amber about my family. My brother was always the star, I explained, watching the gray waves rather than meeting her eyes. Everything came easily to him, and my parents never tried to hide their preference. Instead of offering platitudes or changing the subject, Amber asked questions that helped me articulate feelings I had buried for years. She listened without judgment, as I described holidays centered around Justin achievements overlooked, and the gradual erosion of my self-worth. "That must have been incredibly lonely," she said simply when I finished. Her acknowledgement of my experience, without trying to minimize or explain it away, felt like a gift. As our relationship deepened, Amber encouraged me to pursue my passion for graphic design beyond my agency work. She noticed how I came alive when discussing typography, color theory, and visual composition. When I mentioned a freelance project I had been offered, but was hesitant to accept due to my full-time obligations, she helped me work through the logistics. "You light up when you talk about this kind of work," she observed. "I think you should make room for what brings you joy." With her encouragement, I began building a small portfolio of independent projects. My confidence grew as clients responded positively to my work and referred me to others. Within a year, I had enough regular freelance work to consider reducing my hours at the agency. Amber introduced me to her family during a Thanksgiving visit to her hometown in Vermont. The Clarks were loud, affectionate, and completely different from my own family. Her father, Bob, a high school history teacher, asked thoughtful questions about my design projects and actually listened to the answers. Her mother, Sandra, who ran the local library, showed me Amber's childhood photos and told embarrassing stories that made Amber groan and laugh simultaneously. "Tell Wesley about your dance recital disaster," Sandra urged, passing me a plate of homemade pie. "Mom, nobody needs to hear about my tutu malfunction," Amber protested, but her smile showed no real annoyance. The easy banter, the genuine interest in each other's lives, the absence of competition or comparison, all felt foreign but wonderful. When Amber's brother Kyle arrived with his wife and young daughter, I tensed automatically, expecting the familiar dynamic to emerge. Instead, Kyle greeted me warmly, immediately engaging me in conversation about the local microbrewery scene. "Amber says you have got a great eye for design," he commented. "I could use some advice on my business logo when you have time." That weekend was revelatory. I observed a family that supported each other without keeping score, that celebrated individual successes without diminishing others, that disagreed without withdrawal of affection. It was like discovering a language I had heard about, but never experienced firsthand. As we drove back to Boston, Amber asked about my unusually quiet mood. "I am just processing," I admitted. "Your family is so different from mine. The way they interact, the way they treat each other." "What do you mean?" she asked. "They seem to actually like each other," I said, "and they were interested in me, not just politely, but genuinely." Amber reached across the console to squeeze my hand. "That is how family should be, Wes." That simple statement opened a door to recognition. Through Amber's eyes and her family's example, I began to see more clearly the dysfunction in my own family dynamics. What I had normalized as typical sibling rivalry and parental preferences revealed itself as something more damaging. As my freelance client base grew, Amber supported my decision to leave the agency and start my own design studio. She helped me transform the small second bedroom in my apartment into a functional office space, researched accounting software for small businesses, and celebrated each new client contract as if it were her own success. On our 1-year anniversary, I took Amber back to the cafe where we had our first date. The owner, who now knew us as regulars, reserved our favorite corner table and brought out special desserts at the end of our meal. "I have been thinking," I said, gathering my courage. "Would you consider moving in together when your lease ends next month?" Her smile gave me the answer before she spoke. We spent the next few weeks combining our households, discovering our complementary styles and occasional friction points. Amber's collection of vintage vinyl records found a home next to my photography books. Her bright throw pillows softened my minimalist furniture. We established new routines and traditions that belonged exclusively to us. Living with Amber showed me what a healthy partnership could be. Disagreements were discussed, rather than festering in silence. Accomplishments were celebrated. Challenges were faced together. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen and valued for exactly who I was. My design business flourished, eventually requiring a small office space downtown and 2 part-time assistants. Amber received a promotion to lead counselor at her school. We built a circle of friends who knew us only as we were now, not as defined by our pasts. After 3 years together, I returned to that same cafe with a ring hidden in my pocket. The owner was now our friend and conspirator, bringing champagne to our table after Amber said yes through happy tears. That night, surrounded by friends at an impromptu celebration, I felt a completeness I had never imagined possible. The contrast between my new life and my family history became even starker when we called my parents to share our engagement news. "That is wonderful, Wesley," my mother said, her tone pleasant, but distracted. "Have you set a date yet?" "We will need to coordinate with Justin's schedule, of course." Before I could respond, she continued. "Did we tell you Justin just bought a new house? 4 bedrooms and a pool? His firm made him the youngest partner in their history." As she continued talking about Justin's accomplishments, Amber watched my face. Later that night, she held me close as I finally allowed myself to acknowledge the depth of pain my family relationships had caused. "We get to create our own family now," she whispered, "one built on love and respect." In that moment, I knew our wedding would become more than a celebration of our relationship. It would be a declaration of the life and values we chose to embrace, and the patterns we refused to perpetuate. Wedding planning began with excitement and optimism. Amber and I agreed on a spring ceremony at a restored Victorian estate outside Boston with gardens that would be coming into bloom. We wanted something intimate but beautiful, with around 80 guests who truly mattered to us. My initial anxiety about family involvement surfaced during our first planning weekend. Amber noticed my distraction as we compared potential venues online. "What is on your mind?" she asked, setting aside her laptop. "Just thinking about how to handle the family aspects," I admitted. "The more I think about having Justin there, the more tense I feel." Amber took my hand. "This is our day, Wes. We make the decisions based on what will bring us joy." That conversation gave me temporary reassurance, but my apprehension returned when my mother called the following week. I had barely finished telling her about the venue we had selected when she interrupted. "That sounds lovely, dear. Now, Justin will be your best man, of course. He gives such wonderful speeches. Everyone at his firm talks about his presentation skills." The assumption landed like a punch. "Actually, Mom, I have asked Thomas to be my best man. We have been close friends since I moved to Boston." A lengthy silence followed. "But Wesley, Justin is your brother. People will talk if he is not your best man." "People who matter will understand," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. Later that same week, my father called ostensibly to discuss his contribution to the wedding expenses. "Your mother mentioned the date you have chosen," he began. "I wonder if you might reconsider. Justin has an important conference that week, and it would be much more convenient if you could move the wedding to the following month." I gripped the phone tighter. "Dad, we have already put down deposits. The venue is booked solid for months. We cannot change the date." "Well, surely these places have some flexibility," he pressed. "Justin's schedule is very demanding with his position." "So is ours," I replied. "And this is our wedding." The pattern continued with every wedding conversation. My parents found ways to center Justin in discussions about flowers, music, even menu selections. "Justin is allergic to shellfish. Remember," my mother cautioned when I mentioned our plan for a seafood option. "He will not be eating it, Mom. He can choose the chicken." The tensions escalated during a family dinner 2 months into our planning. My parents had driven to Boston for the weekend, ostensibly to meet Amber's parents and discuss wedding details. We met at an upscale restaurant downtown, and I was immediately on edge when I saw Justin had accompanied them without warning. "Surprise?" my mother exclaimed. "Justin had a client meeting in Boston, so we thought it would be perfect for everyone to meet at once. Justin shook hands with Amber's parents, immediately launching into a story about his recent business trip to Tokyo. Bob and Sandra exchanged glances, but maintained polite interest as Justin dominated the conversation. When I mentioned my growing design business, my father nodded absently. "That sounds nice, Wesley. But as I was telling Bob earlier, Justin just closed a multi-million-dollar deal for his firm. Youngest executive to ever achieve that milestone. Wesley's business has doubled its client base in the past year." Amber interjected firmly. His designs for the Children's Hospital fundraiser increased their donations by 30%. Justin smirked slightly. Cute projects always get attention. Real business is measured differently. Throughout the meal, Justin made subtle comments, undermining my achievements, while my parents beamed at his every word. When the dessert menus arrived, I noticed Justin leaning too close to Amber as he pointed out recommendations. "The chocolate souffle is amazing here," he said, his hand briefly touching her arm. "I took my last girlfriend here whenever I was in town." The comment about "whenever I was in town" implied a frequency that seemed designed to establish his familiarity with Boston as superior to my own. The territorial gesture toward Amber was the final straw. That night, after our parents returned to their hotel, Amber and I had our first serious conversation about excluding Justin from the wedding. "I saw a side of your brother tonight that confirms everything you have told me," Amber said quietly. "The way he tried to establish dominance, the little digs at you, even the way he invaded my personal space. He has always been like that," I acknowledged. "But I thought maybe I was overreacting or being too sensitive." "You are not," Amber stated firmly. "His behavior was inappropriate and your parents enabled it completely." Over the next week, the idea of a Justin-free wedding took root. I began meeting with a therapist to work through my feelings about my family and to gain clarity about boundaries. Dr. Kaplan helped me recognize patterns I had normalized throughout my life. "What you are describing sounds like classic golden child and scapegoat dynamics," she explained during our third session. "These roles become entrenched in family systems and are very difficult to change from within." "So, you think excluding Justin might be justified?" I asked. "I think your wedding day should include people who respect and support your relationship," she replied carefully. "And I think you deserve to feel comfortable and celebrated on that day." Several late-night conversations with Amber followed. We weighed the potential fallout against the certainty of tension if Justin attended. "If he comes, he will find ways to make the day about him," I explained. "My parents will focus on him, compare us, and I will spend our wedding day feeling inadequate in my own celebration." "Then the decision seems clear," Amber said. "But are you prepared for your parents' reaction?" I was not, but I knew it was necessary. I spent days drafting and redrafting a letter to my parents explaining my decision. The final version was respectful, but firm, outlining my reasons, without accusation but without apology either. After careful consideration, Amber and I have decided our wedding guest list will not include Justin. This decision is based on the dynamics that have characterized our relationship throughout our lives. We want our wedding day to be a joyful celebration without the tensions that have defined family gatherings in the past. We sincerely hope you will respect our decision and join us in celebrating this important day. As I sealed the envelope containing the letter, I felt a profound weight lifting. For perhaps the first time in my life, I was setting a boundary that protected my own well-being instead of accommodating others at my expense. Whatever happened next, this step represented growth. 3 days after mailing the letter, my phone rang at 9:30 on a Sunday morning. Seeing my father's name on the screen, I took a deep breath before answering. "Wesley, what is the meaning of this letter?" he demanded without greeting. "Your mother is beside herself." I moved to the living room window looking out at the Boston skyline as I steadied myself. "The letter explains our decision. Dad, Amber and I have given this a lot of thought. This is absolutely unacceptable," he continued, his voice rising. "Justin is your brother. He belongs at your wedding." "May I speak with Mom?" I asked, hoping for a more reasonable conversation. My mother came on the line, her voice thick with tears. "Wesley, how could you do this to your brother, to our family? What will people think?" "This is not about other people, Mom. It is about creating a positive experience for Amber and me on our wedding day." "But he is your only brother," she cried. "What has he ever done to deserve this?" The question stunned me with its profound lack of awareness. Years of slight dismissals and outright favoritism flashed through my mind. "It is not about one specific action," I explained carefully. "It is about a lifelong pattern that has made family gatherings painful for me. I do not want that tension at my wedding." "What pattern?" my father demanded, apparently on speakerphone now. "We have always treated both our sons fairly." The blatant denial ignited something in me. "Dad, that is simply not true. Justin has always been the golden child. My achievements were footnotes compared to his. My needs were secondary. My entire childhood was spent in his shadow." "That is ridiculous," he sputtered. "You have always been so sensitive, making problems where none exist. If you cannot see it after all these years, you never will." I replied, surprising myself with my calmness. "But my decision stands. Justin is not invited to the wedding." My mother began sobbing in the background. My father's voice turned cold. "Then we have a problem, Wesley, because we will not attend without Justin. You cannot divide this family this way." "That is your choice," I said, my heart pounding, but my resolve firm. "I hope you will reconsider and be there to support me." "Support you?" he barked. "You are the one withdrawing support from this family. If you persist with this foolishness, do not expect our support, financial or otherwise, in the future." The threat hung in the air. I thought of the modest contribution they had promised toward the wedding money we had already decided we could cover ourselves, if necessary. "I understand," I said finally. "I do not think you do," my father continued. "This goes beyond the wedding, Wesley. If you cannot show proper respect for this family, perhaps you should not consider yourself part of it anymore." The call ended shortly after, with my mother still crying, and my father issuing final warnings about reconsidering my rash decision. I sat in stunned silence until Amber returned from her morning run. "That bad?" she asked, taking in my expression. I nodded, recounting the conversation. Amber sat beside me, her presence grounding me, as the reality of what had just happened sank in. "They threatened to disown me." I said the words sounding surreal. "Over a wedding invitation." "No," Amber corrected gently. "Over your refusal to maintain the family dynamic that has hurt you for decades." The next few days brought a barrage of text messages and voicemails, each more desperate or angry than the last. My mother: "Please reconsider, Wesley. This is breaking my heart." My father: "Your stubbornness is destroying this family. Is that what you want?" Extended family members began calling too clearly, having heard a version of events that cast me as the villain. My Aunt Clara, my father's sister, left a particularly painful message. "Wesley, I cannot believe you would be so selfish. After everything your parents have done for you, Justin is devastated." I doubted that last part very much, and confirmation came 3 days later when Justin himself called. "So this is how you want to play it?" He began, his tone dismissive. "Creating drama to make yourself the center of attention for once." "This is not about attention, Justin." "Right," he scoffed. "It is about you being jealous, same as always. You cannot stand that I have actually made something of myself while you play around with your little drawings in Boston." His contempt was so naked, so unfiltered, that it actually gave me clarity. This was the real Justin, the one my parents never saw or chose to ignore. "My decision stands," I said firmly. "I wish you well, but you will not be at my wedding." "Your loss," he sneered. "Good luck explaining to your children someday why their uncle does not know them. Mom and Dad are serious about cutting you off, you know. That trust fund they set up for you, after Grandma died, they are talking to their lawyer about redirecting it to me." The mention of money I had never known about was clearly meant to hurt me or make me reconsider. Instead, it only confirmed I was making the right choice. The final blow came in the form of a certified letter from my parents 2 weeks later. The formal language detailed their painful decision to withdraw support from both the wedding and any future endeavors, unless I reconsidered my divisive and hurtful actions against your brother. Amber found me staring at the letter in our kitchen. "They really did it," I said quietly. "They chose him. Again." She took the letter, read it quickly, then deliberately tore it in half. "Their loss, she said firmly. We have each other, and we have people who truly love us. The practical implications hit us in the following days. We had to rework our wedding budget without my parents' contribution. The guest list shrank considerably when most of my extended family declined their invitations, many with pointed messages about family loyalty. The emotional toll was even greater. Despite years of disappointment, some part of me had still hoped for parental approval and support. The finality of their rejection opened wounds I thought had long since scarred over. Amber's family stepped up magnificently. Her parents called to express their unwavering support and increased their contribution to the wedding without being asked. Her brother Kyle offered to handle some of the photography to reduce our vendor costs. Friends rallied around us too. Thomas organized a more elaborate bachelor weekend than originally planned. Amber's best friend Leah took over coordination with vendors to reduce our stress. Through it all, I continued my weekly therapy sessions processing the grief and anger that surfaced in waves. Dr. Kaplan helped me recognize that the pain I felt was valid, but not a sign I had made the wrong choice. Standing up for yourself often hurts. Before it heals, she reminded me. You are mourning the family you wished. You had, not the one that actually exists. In my darkest moments, doubt crept in. Was I being unreasonable? Overly sensitive? Was a wedding invitation worth destroying family relationships? Then I would remember Justin's dismissive tone, my parents' unwillingness to even consider my perspective their immediate threats rather than attempts to understand. In those moments, my resolve would strengthen again. Amber never wavered in her support, but she also gave me space to process my complicated emotions. Whatever you decide, I am with you, she assured me. If you want to reach out to them again, I will support that too. But as the weeks passed and our wedding day approached, I became increasingly certain. The family I was creating with Amber would be built on different values than the one I had grown up in. That clarity was worth the pain of getting there. The 6 weeks leading up to our wedding unfolded in a strange combination of joy and tension. Without communication from my family, we adjusted our plans accordingly. The seating chart was reworked, the head table reconfigured, the processional reimagined, without parents of the groom. Practically speaking, these changes were simple. Emotionally, each adjustment served as a reminder of the rift that now existed in my life. Answering questions from vendors about family participation became an exercise in careful wording. My parents will not be attending. I would explain briefly, watching sympathy flicker across faces before changing the subject. Our friends stepped into roles typically filled by family. Thomas would not only be my best man but would also stand in the place traditionally occupied by the father of the groom during certain ceremonial moments. His wife Eliza volunteered to handle day of coordination, a task my mother had initially claimed. Family is who shows up, Thomas told me over beers one evening. And we are showing up. Amber's unwavering support remained my anchor. She never once suggested that I compromise to make planning easier or to avoid awkwardness. Instead, she helped me focus on the meaning behind our celebration. This day is about our commitment to each other. And the life we are building, she reminded me. Everything else is just details. 3 weeks before the wedding, a concerning email arrived from Justin. The message was brief, but unsettling. Hope you have good security at your little party. Would be a shame if someone disrupted your special day. I forwarded the email to Dr. Kaplan, seeking her professional opinion on whether it constituted an actual threat. Her response was measured, but firm. While this may be nothing more than an attempt to unsettle you, I believe taking reasonable precautions would be wise, she advised. After consulting with Amber, I contacted a security company recommended by our venue. The additional expense strained our budget further, but the peace of mind was worth it. We arranged for 2 security professionals to be present, discreetly positioned to handle any potential disruptions. The venue coordinator was understanding when I explained the situation in vague terms. Family complications happen more often than you might think, she assured me. We will make sure everything runs smoothly. My bachelor party weekend arrived, a welcome distraction from wedding stress. Thomas had arranged a 3-day trip to a lakeside cabin in Vermont. No wild partying or stereotypical antics, just fishing, hiking, and evenings around a fire pit with the 6 friends who had become my chosen family in Boston. On our final evening, as we watched the sunset over the lake, I found myself unexpectedly emotional. "I want to thank all of you," I said, raising my beer bottle in a toast. "When my own family checked out, you guys stepped up in ways I never expected. That means everything to me." Kyle, Amber's brother, who had become a close friend, clapped me on the shoulder. "Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. You have got that with us." Returning to Boston, the final countdown to the wedding began. Last-minute details consumed our days, confirming vendor timing, finalizing playlists, packing for our honeymoon. The busier I stayed, the less time I had to dwell on my family's absence. The night before the rehearsal dinner, I received a text from my cousin Mark, the only relative who had maintained contact throughout the ordeal. "Heads up, Uncle Robert and Aunt Diane are planning to come to the ceremony anyway. Justin too. They think you will not make a scene if they just show up." My stomach dropped as I showed the message to Amber. We immediately contacted our security team to alert them to the potential situation. The head of security assured us they would handle any uninvited guests, discreetly but firmly. "No one will disrupt your day," he promised. We deal with this kind of situation more often than you might think. That night, I barely slept cycling through scenarios in my mind. Would my parents actually crash our wedding? Would Justin create a scene? Should I try to prevent their arrival with one last phone call? By morning, I had reached a state of calm resolve. Whatever happened, I would not let it overshadow the commitment Amber and I were making to each other. The rehearsal dinner that evening was a warm, intimate gathering at a restaurant near the harbor. Surrounded by friends and Amber's loving family, I felt the rightness of our decision with renewed clarity. Bob Clark gave a heartfelt toast that brought tears to my eyes. "From the moment Wesley entered our daughter's life, we have seen her happiness grow," he said, raising his glass. "Today, we do not just gain a son-in-law, we welcome another beloved member into our family circle." Later, as guests mingled over dessert, I stepped outside for a moment of quiet reflection. The Boston skyline glittered across the harbor, the same view I had admired when I first arrived in this city, seeking a fresh start. How far I had come since then. How much I had built from nothing. Thomas found me there, offering a glass of whiskey and his solid presence. "Ready for tomorrow?" he asked. "More ready than I have ever been for anything," I replied with complete honesty. As we clinked glasses, I realized that, despite the family drama, I felt lighter than I had in years. The absence of my parents and Justin meant the absence of the dynamics that had diminished me throughout my life. Whatever happened tomorrow, I would be marrying Amber surrounded by people who truly saw and valued me. That certainty carried me through the sleepless night that followed, through the morning preparations in the venue's groom suite, through the messages from various family members warning that my parents and Justin were indeed planning to attend uninvited. "We have it handled," Thomas assured me as we adjusted our ties. "You focus on Amber and your vows. Everything else is just noise." I checked in with our security team one last time before guests began arriving. They confirmed their positions and protocols, promising discreet but firm handling of any situation that might arise. As I watched the venue transform from morning preparation to afternoon readiness, I felt a surprising sense of peace. Whatever storm might come, Amber and I would weather it together. That was the only certainty I needed. The morning of our wedding dawned clear and perfect, with spring sunshine warming the Victorian estate gardens where our ceremony would take place. From the groom's suite window, I watched the final touches being added to the ceremony space. White chairs arranged in neat rows, an arch of early spring blooms, musicians setting up in the corner. My phone buzzed continuously with updates from various sources. My cousin Mark texted that my parents and Justin had checked into a hotel near the venue. Amber's brother Kyle reported seeing an unfamiliar car driving slowly past the estate entrance. The security team confirmed they were in position and briefed on potential unauthorized guests. I focused on getting ready, surrounded by Thomas and my groomsmen. We shared stories and laughter as we dressed in our navy suits, a welcome distraction from the tension simmering beneath the surface. "Whatever happens today, remember what matters," Thomas said, as he helped straighten my tie. "You and Amber starting your life together. Everything else is just background noise." At 1:15:45 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, I received the text I had been both expecting and dreading. Our head of security, Michael, messaged, "3 individuals matching your family description attempting to enter. Female in blue dress, older male in gray suit, younger male in black suit. Proceeding as discussed." I showed Thomas the message, and he immediately stepped into action, keeping the other groomsmen engaged in conversation while signaling to Kyle that the situation we had prepared for was unfolding. From the window, I could see the confrontation taking place near the garden entrance. Michael and his colleague were speaking with my parents, and Justin, who were gesturing animatedly. My father appeared to be arguing, pointing toward the ceremony space, while my mother dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. "Do you want to go down there?" Thomas asked quietly. I considered for a moment, then nodded. Better to handle this directly than let it escalate. Kyle and Thomas accompanied me as I made my way downstairs and out to the garden path. As we approached, I could hear my father's indignant tone. "This is ridiculous. We are his parents. You cannot prevent us from attending our own son's wedding." Michael maintained his professional demeanor. "Sir, I understand your frustration, but I am following the explicit instructions of the bride and groom. Your names are not on the approved guest list." Justin noticed me first, his expression shifting from annoyed to smugly triumphant. "Here he is now. Let us see if he has the guts to turn away his own family to their faces." My mother turned, her expression a calculated mix of hurt and hope. "Wesley, darling, there must have been some misunderstanding with the invitations. We would never miss your special day. The brazen rewriting of reality might have worked on me in the past. Today it only strengthened my resolve." "There was no misunderstanding," I said calmly. "My letter was very clear, as was your response. You chose not to respect my decision." My father's face reddened. "This is absurd. We are your parents. Justin is your brother. Family belongs at weddings." "Real family respects boundaries," I replied. "You made your position clear when you threatened to disown me rather than accept my decision about my own wedding guest list." Justin stepped forward, his familiar condescending smile in place. "Come on, Wes. You have made your point with this little power play. Very dramatic. Now let us move past it and celebrate like adults." His dismissive tone, the way he minimized my decision as a childish attention grab, crystallized exactly why I had made this choice in the first place. "This is not a game or a power play," I said. "This is me finally standing up for myself and protecting what matters to me." My mother began crying more intensely, a tactic that had often worked to make me back down in the past. "How can you do this to us after everything we have done for you?" Before I could respond, Bob Clark approached our group, his presence calm and steadying. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, positioning himself slightly between me and my family. "And who are you?" my father demanded. "Bob Clark, father of the bride," he replied evenly. "And I believe these gentlemen have explained that you are not on the guest list." Justin looked Bob up and down with undisguised contempt. "This is a family matter. It does not concern you." Bob's expression remained pleasant but firm. My daughter's wedding day and her happiness very much concern me, as does the well-being of the man she's choosing to marry. "Wesley is our son," my mother interjected. "We have every right to be here." "Rights to relationships are earned through respect," Bob replied. "Something I understand you have not demonstrated toward Wesley or his choices." Justin snorted derisively. "Great. You have found yourself a replacement family. How touching." The naked disdain in his voice seemed to surprise even my parents, who glanced at him uncomfortably. "They are not replacements," I said quietly. "They are people who have shown me what family should actually be." Justin's face darkened. "Always the victim. Aren't you Wesley, poor, overlooked brother? Maybe if you had accomplished anything worthwhile in your life, Mom and Dad would not have had to focus so much attention on me." Several guests who were arriving paused, witnessing the confrontation with uncomfortable expressions. Michael stepped closer, prepared to intervene if needed. "I think we should take this conversation somewhere more private," he suggested. "There is nothing more to discuss," I replied. "My decision stands. You are not welcome at our wedding." My father's expression hardened. "If you do this, Wesley, there is no coming back from it. You are choosing strangers over your own blood." I am choosing respect and joy on my wedding day, I corrected. Something you seem unable to offer. Just as it seemed the situation might de-escalate, a woman emerged from behind my parents. With a shock, I recognized Rebecca, Justin's ex-girlfriend, who had briefly overlapped with my early time in Boston. Amber had met her once at a networking event, and had instantly disliked her aggressive status-conscious personality. "Wesley, please be reasonable," Rebecca said, stepping forward with a familiarity that was entirely inappropriate. "Everyone is just trying to make this day special." The calculated addition of Rebecca to their party was so transparently manipulative that I actually laughed. "You brought Rebecca—" "Seriously, what exactly was the plan here?" My mother looked uncomfortable for the first time. "Rebecca has always been fond of you, Wesley. We thought she might help smooth things over." Rebecca dated Justin for 3 years and barely acknowledged my existence, except to ask about my brother's whereabouts, I replied. And Amber has specifically mentioned her discomfort with Rebecca's previous behavior toward me. Justin smirked. "Still hiding behind your fiancée's feelings? Some things never change." Something in me snapped at his words, not in anger, but in clarity. I stood straighter, meeting his gaze directly. "This is exactly why you are not welcome here today. This pattern of dismissal, of belittling, of making every situation about yourself. I have spent my entire life being diminished by you and enabled by our parents. Today is about celebrating love and commitment with people who value me exactly as I am. You have never been able to do that." I turned to my parents. "And you have never been able to see it. Or worse, you saw and did nothing. Either way, you do not get to disregard my clearly stated boundary and then play the victims when that boundary is enforced." A small crowd of guests had gathered at a respectful distance, witnessing the confrontation. Among them, I noticed Amber's bridesmaids looking concerned. The last thing I wanted was for this drama to reach Amber before the ceremony. "Michael," I said to our security head, "please escort these individuals from the property. If they refuse to leave voluntarily, please contact the local authorities." "You would have us arrested," my mother gasped. "I would have you respect my wishes," I replied. "The choice of how that happens is yours." My father put his arm around my mother's shoulders. "Come, Diane. Our son has made his choice very clear. Justin, Rebecca, we are leaving." As they turned to go, Justin could not resist one parting shot. "Congratulations on ruining what should have been a family celebration. I hope it was worth it." "It already is," I said simply. As they walked toward the parking area, escorted by Michael's colleague, I felt a strange lightness. The confrontation I had dreaded was over, and I was still standing. More than that, I had spoken my truth without anger or apology. Thomas squeezed my shoulder. "You good?" I nodded, surprised to find it was true. Actually, yes, better than I expected. Bob Clark shook my hand with both of his. "That took courage, son. Amber would be proud." The remaining guests who had witnessed the scene were being directed to the ceremony area by the venue staff. Kyle checked his watch. "We should probably delay about 30 minutes to make sure they are really gone and to let everyone settle," he suggested. I agreed, and word was sent to the coordinator and musicians. As we returned to the groom's suite, I felt a strange sense of calm. The storm I had been dreading had come and gone, and I had weathered it. Thomas poured small glasses of whiskey for our group. To boundaries, he toasted. To real family, I added, looking at the circle of friends who had stood with me. 30 minutes later, I received confirmation that my parents, Justin and Rebecca, had left the property. The coordinator reported that all guests were seated. The musicians were ready, and most importantly, Amber knew nothing of the confrontation. As I took my place at the altar, looking out at the faces of people who had chosen to be there, who supported our relationship and respected our decisions, I felt a profound sense of rightness. The absence of my biological family created no void, because this gathering represented what family truly should be: a community bound by love, respect, and genuine care. When the music changed and Amber appeared at the end of the aisle, radiant in her gown and smiling with pure joy, everything else faded away. This moment, this commitment, this beginning was all that mattered. We had defended its integrity, and now we could celebrate without shadows. The ceremony itself became a testament to the authenticity we had fought to protect. Standing beneath an arch of spring flowers with sunlight filtering through the garden trees, I watched Amber walk toward me on her father's arm. Her smile held no tension, no awareness of the drama that had preceded this moment. That alone made our difficult stand worthwhile. When she reached me, Bob placed her hand in mine with a meaningful squeeze to both our hands, a silent affirmation of his support. The officiant, a friend from Amber's graduate program, welcomed our gathered community of friends and chosen family. We are here today to celebrate not just the union of Amber and Wesley, but the intentional creation of a new family founded on mutual respect, genuine support, and boundless love, she began. Those words, which we had helped craft weeks earlier, now carried even deeper significance. This was indeed an intentional creation, one we had defended against forces that would have compromised its foundation. When the time came for our vows, I found myself speaking from a place of unexpected clarity and strength. Amber, you entered my life when I had accepted a diminished version of myself. I said, my voice steady, despite the emotion. Through your eyes, I began to see my own worth. Through your love, I found the courage to stand for what matters. Today I promise to bring that same clarity and courage to our marriage. I promise to see you fully, to respect your boundaries as sacred, to celebrate your gifts without comparison, and to choose you actively every single day. Tears shone in Amber's eyes as she spoke her vows, in return, promising partnership, honesty, and the creation of a home where both of us could flourish fully. As we exchanged rings and were pronounced husband and wife, applause erupted from our guests. The joy in that moment felt hard-won, and therefore more precious a happiness we had actively defended. Our reception unfolded in the estate's renovated carriage house, transformed with twinkling lights, spring flowers, and tables arranged to facilitate conversation and connection. Instead of a traditional head table, Amber and I had chosen to sit at different guest tables throughout the evening, spending time with various groups of friends. During dinner, Thomas rose for his best man speech. He spoke eloquently about witnessing our relationship from its earliest days, about the values we embodied as a couple, and about the community we had built around us. In Wesley and Amber, I have seen what happens when two people recognize the best in each other and commit to nurturing that potential, he concluded. Their relationship reminds us that family is defined not by obligation, but by choice, not by history, but by how we treat each other in the present. A surprise awaited us after the formal toasts. The venue coordinator dimmed the lights and a screen lowered at one end of the room. A video began playing featuring messages from friends who could not attend in person. My college roommate, who now lived in Japan. Amber's childhood friends serving in the Peace Corps, colleagues who had moved to other cities but remained connected to our lives. Each spoke directly to the camera, sharing specific memories and the impact we had made on their lives. My photography professor from college, now in his 70s, appeared on screen. Wesley, you arrived in my class believing you were second-rate, he said. I watched you discover your unique vision, your ability to see beauty others missed. In Amber, you have found someone who sees you with that same clarity. That is the rarest gift in life. By the video's end, the room was filled with both laughter and tears. This collaborative gift from our friends demonstrated the richness of the connections we had built, the network of genuine relationships that constituted our true family. The dancing began afterward, with Amber and I sharing our first dance to a song about building something lasting together. Bob and Amber's dance brought smiles as he twirled his daughter with obvious pride. When the time came for what would traditionally be my dance with my mother, Amber's mother, Sandra stepped forward instead. I would be honored, she said, simply understanding, without explanation. As we moved across the dance floor, Sandra squeezed my hand. We are so glad you are part of our family, Wesley. Thank you for showing me what family should be, I replied. The evening continued with dancing, conversation, and celebration, untainted by tension or drama. Several guests commented on the unusually warm atmosphere, the genuine connections evident throughout the room. This does not feel like a normal wedding, my colleague Diane observed. It feels like a real community celebration. That night in our hotel suite overlooking Boston Harbor, Amber and I finally had a moment alone to reflect on the day. Everything was perfect. Amber sighed happily. kicking off her dancing shoes. Exactly what a wedding should be. You did not hear about the pre-ceremony excitement, I asked, loosening my tie. She turned to me. What excitement? I briefly recounted the confrontation with my family, watching her expression shift from concern to pride. You stood your ground, she said, taking my hands. How do you feel about it? Lighter, I admitted. Like I finally put down a weight I have been carrying my whole life. I kept expecting to feel guilt or doubt, but instead, I just feel free. Our honeymoon took us to Portugal, 2 weeks of exploring ancient cities, coastal villages, and vineyard valleys, far from family drama and wedding stress. Without the constant undercurrent of tension I had lived with for so long, I discovered new capacity for joy, for presence, for connection. You laugh more easily now, Amber observed as we shared dinner on a terrace overlooking the Atlantic. Have you noticed that? I had not, but she was right. Some persistent rigidity had left my shoulders, my smile, my approach to each day. When we returned home, messages awaited from various family members. Some expressed support for my decision, others condemned it, and many simply seemed confused by the departure from family obligation. An unexpected letter had arrived from my Uncle Stephen, my father's brother, whom I had always found intimidating. I have observed the dynamic between you and Justin since you were children, he wrote. While I remained silent then, I regret not speaking up about the obvious favoritism and its impact on you. Your decision regarding your wedding took courage that I have often lacked in my own life. I respect your choice, and the strength it required. His words offered a validation I had not known. I still needed an acknowledgement from within the family system that what I had experienced was real, not imagined or exaggerated, as my parents had always suggested. My parents attempted contact several times in the weeks that followed each message, carefully avoiding apology or acknowledgement, while suggesting we move forward and put the unpleasantness behind us. Justin remained notably silent, his absence, a relief rather than a loss. 3 months after our wedding, Amber and I invited my parents to meet for coffee, a neutral setting for a conversation about the future of our relationship. They arrived with the same assumptions that had characterized our relationship for decades. We are so glad you have come to your senses, my mother said, before even sitting down. Justin was saying just yesterday that family disagreements should not be dragged out. The mention of Justin as authority on family harmony might once have triggered my withdrawal. Now it simply confirmed the unchanged nature of their perspective. That is not why we suggested meeting, I explained calmly. We wanted to discuss how we might build a healthier relationship moving forward, but that requires acknowledging the patterns that led to our current situation. My father frowned. The past is past, Wesley. Dwelling on old grievances is unproductive. Recognizing patterns is not dwelling, Amber interjected gently. It is the only way to change them. The conversation continued in this vein for nearly an hour. My parents remained unwilling or unable to acknowledge any problematic dynamics, while Amber and I maintained our position that genuine reconciliation required truth as its foundation. We left the meeting with clarity rather than resolution. My parents were not currently capable of the self-reflection necessary for authentic relationship. That knowledge, while sad, was also freeing. It allowed us to set appropriate boundaries without the constant hope for change that had kept me vulnerable to continued hurt. We can leave the door open without standing in the doorway waiting, Amber observed wisely as we drove home. 6 months into our marriage, we established a pattern of monthly dinners with my parents' brief contained interactions that allowed connection without expectation of depth. Justin remained a topic they mentioned frequently, but one I engaged with minimally. These boundaries allowed me to maintain contact without returning to old harmful patterns. On our first anniversary, Amber shared news that gave our journey new meaning. She was pregnant. As we prepared to become parents ourselves, the lessons from my family experience took on greater significance. I want our child to know they are loved for exactly who they are, I told Amber, as we lay in bed, discussing our hopes for parenthood. Not for their achievements or how they compare to others, but for their essential self. They will know that, Amber assured me. Because you understand its importance in a way only someone who lacked it can. Throughout the pregnancy, I continued my therapy with Dr. Kaplan, working through my fears about repeating patterns and my determination to create a different experience for our child. The work was challenging but rewarding, helping me transform painful experiences into wisdom that could serve the next generation. When our daughter Eliza was born the following spring, I held her with a sense of wonder and fierce protective love. Looking into her tiny face, I made silent promises about the kind of father I would be, the kind of family we would create. "She will never doubt her place in our hearts," I whispered to Amber, as we brought our daughter home. My parents came to meet their granddaughter, bringing elaborate gifts and taking many photos. Justin sent an expensive baby outfit, but did not visit. These gestures contained the same dynamics as always, but they now affected me differently. I could observe the patterns without being defined by them. 2 years into parenthood, the truth I had fought to acknowledge at our wedding had become the foundation of our family life. Eliza was growing into a confident, joyful child, who knew she was valued unconditionally. Amber and I had created the home neither of us had fully experienced growing up, one where authenticity was celebrated and boundaries respected. My relationship with my parents remained limited but steady. Justin and I maintained distance that served us both. The family gatherings of my childhood had been replaced by celebrations with friends who had become family, with Amber's loving parents and brother, and with a growing circle of parents we had met through Eliza. Looking back on our wedding day confrontation, from the perspective of several years, I recognized it as a pivotal moment of transformation. By standing firm in that garden, speaking truth, despite pressure to compromise, I had broken a lifelong pattern of diminishment. That single act of courage had opened the door to authentic living that continued to unfold in our marriage, our parenthood, and our community. The most profound lesson from that journey was simple, but life-changing. Family is defined not by blood, but by respect. Not by obligation, but by choice. Real family sees you clearly, values you completely, and loves you not despite, but including your boundaries and needs. By refusing to invite my golden child brother to our wedding, I had not divided my family as my parents claimed. I had simply revealed the truth of what already existed and created space for something healthier to grow in its place. If my story resonates with you, if you have struggled with family dynamics that diminish rather than nurture, you know that you deserve better. Standing for your own worth may be the hardest thing you ever do, but on the other side of that courage lies freedom and the chance to create the connections you have always deserved. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that ultimately led to greater peace in your life? Drop a comment below to share your experience. And if this story helped you feel less alone, please hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that family should be earned, not merely claimed by blood. Thank you for witnessing my journey, and may you find the courage to honor your own.